vandalize my heart. See what the turks he tell you. You should have stopped him, but now he's been singing one OK rock songs all day long in the studio. So you'll never hear peace because you all didn't stop him in the comments. But no, Turksy hopes you're all happy. And you over there, the little brother, Turksy sees you, you big pompous dragon, enjoying your ribs. Turksy ought to give you the toughest he knew how. Listen, Burry, you're getting your butt back here. The show starring. Oh, yeah. We had it made. We could be a renegades. Oh, Turksy's going to enjoy hurting you. Christmas time was fast approaching on Mobius, but this time Sondra was ready for it. So a number of presents were already made and hidden under her bed. But there were a few people she hadn't gotten yet. I had no idea what to get to Miles, she thought. I know he's got something special for me. As a fun cue, Sondra heard her knocking on her door. Hey Sondra, can I come in? Tails asked. Sure thing, Miles, she said, putting some fancy touches on the presents he had in front of her. Tails came in and shook some snow off his coat. He smiled when he saw what she was doing. I don't suppose that's for me, is it? He asked. No, Miles, this is for Sally. Truth be told, I have no idea what to get you. Oh, you don't have to get me anything. Did you get me anything? Well, yeah, but nothing. Last year, I didn't have anything for anyone. This year, I'm making sure I get as many as possible. I know you're gonna try to change your mind. You're even more stubborn than Aunt Sally. Sondra smiled. I'll take that as a compliment. Meanwhile, get out of here so I can finish. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Oh, by the way, when do you want to get to work on Sonic's gift? Give me a few minutes to finish up, and I'll meet you on the bridge. You got it, Tails said, pulling his hood up. Don't forget your coat. It's pretty cold out. He opened the door and quickly walked out, closing it behind him. Sondra smiled as he slid the present under her bed. I can't believe he still won't let me forget last year, she muttered, pulling on her coat. She opened the door and was immediately met by a snowball in the face. Sondra wiped the snow from her face and glared around. A racing storm had blanketed the great forest of snow. Nahal hadn't been hit too hard, and most residents had shoveled their walks to clear almost before the storm stopped. But no one was outside in the moment. They were all either getting their gifts ready or helping to decorate the war room. Sondra ducked just as another snowball came whizzing towards her. Knock it off, Miles! She yelled, racing towards the bridge. When she reached it, she saw Tails had his back turned toward her. I don't think you're very... A tinkling sound above her caught her attention. She tilted her face up and saw something hit the top of the tree she was under. The snow shook loose from the top and landed into the branches beneath it, shaking the snow loose there. Uh-oh, Sondra whispered, watching helplessly as the chain reaction continued as she was covered in snow. Sondra burst free of the snow pile, sending snow everywhere. She stopped next to Tails and saw that Bunny was standing in front of him with her hand over his mouth. What's the big idea? She demanded. The big idea, Antoine said as he jumped down from a nearby tree, is that Bunny and I were bored. So you decided to prank me? Not you specifically, Bunny said, releasing Tails. But when we saw Tails coming by, we knew you'd be following. We weren't ready for him, so we got you instead. Lucky me, Sondra muttered. So, anyway, we gotta be going. Got a present to work on that'll take us out of Knothole. Are you two needy and need help? Antoine asked. Thanks, Aunt, but no, Tails said. Well, you know if we do. Ready to go, Sondra? I've been ready, she said, rubbing up her legs. See you later. Antoine and Bunny waved as Sondra and Tails took off. What should we do now? Antoine asked. Bunny looked at him sidelong. Not what I want, I'm afraid, but we could set up for another prank. Sadly, no chance of a Bunny and Antoine lemon. Take it! Antoine frowned at Bunny. That would probably be best, he said, a slight coldness to his voice. I didn't mind to upset you, Secret Twine. It's just, I understand, Bunny, but it's becoming just as hard as on me as it is on you. I am doing my best to not be thinking about it. Go on, Trixie dares you. She dares you to make a single joke about, you know. Okay. I'm not. Put down the taser. And the same goes for the little brother. Let's not forget, you're just a gold dragon. You're not immune to electricity. Darcy knew his weakness. Bunny nodded. Well, Micah, he whispered. Bunny hugged him back. I guess we got some talking to do ourselves, don't we? Around this time, Sally was busy decorating of the war room. Sonic, hand me some mistletoe, she said, holding out her hand without looking back. Huh? Sonic asked. Oh yeah, sorry. What's the matter with you? Sally asked as she floated up to the roof to hang the mistletoe. You haven't been yourself at all today. He hasn't been himself all thick. What are you talking about? Sorry, Sal. I'm just worried about my mom. What else? It could be any day now. Would it be something as he gave birth on Christmas Day? Roar asked, helping Dulcie wrestle the tree into position. Sonic just shook his head and chuckled. I think she wants it out now. I'm glad I'm a dragon, Dulcie said. I won't mind sitting on an egg for a while, but no way would I want to carry one inside me for 9 months. You'll never know what you're missing, Sally said wistfully. You almost sounded like you're looking forward to it. Sally glanced down at Sonic and smiled. Maybe I am, she said, and hung a sprig of mistletoe above Sonic's head. Sondra and Tails ran through the forest in silence, each one deep in thought. Both were concerned about what they would discover, but Sondra was much more so. There was an aspect to this that she had not even told Tails about. Soon Sanctuary learned into view. Sondra and Tails slowed, coming to a smooth stop in front of the doors. Sondra opened the main doors and scurried inside, with Tails following close behind. Thomas, are you still here? Sondra called, shutting the door behind him. Where else would that be? Thomas asked, coming out of the back room. We have a favor to ask, Tails said. We need you to contact Knuckles for us. You come in a good time then, Thomas said, moving aside. The Guardian was here, helping me with the King and Nagas. Is that legal? Tails asked. I thought he wasn't supposed to take sides. I'm not, Knuckles said, stepping out of the same room which Thomas has emerged. But the process of removing that evil will take longer than the race has left to run. Neither one will affect the race, so I may affect them. Not only that, but I'm a popular character, so me popping up will help boost the ratings. It's true. The more times Knuckles shows up in effect, the feud count goes up. Sondra nodded. Anyway, I've come to talk to you about what I intend to do with the robot sensation guns plans. Sally said I had to see you before I do anything with them. Indeed. If you'll excuse us. Knuckles waved his hands, and both he and Sondra disappeared in a flash of light. Hey! Tails yelled. I'm supposed to go with her! Thomas shrugged. Perhaps then you could tell me what she has intended. Sondra blinked her eyes. Where are we? She asked, staring around. Knuckles smiled and sat down in the center of the chamber whence they had appeared. We are on the floating island, he said. More specifically, Angel Island, but that's beside the point. We are on the Emerald Chamber. Don't mind some of the sound system. Vector thought I was getting lonely, so he decided to set up the boombox. And don't mind the posters. Those are mighties. They ought to encourage me to work out. And don't mind the manga collection that comes from SBO. And don't mind the job, honey. That's from Charmy and his people. And the plussies are from Bomb and Heavy. Sandra's look changed from surprise to awe. Aww. I never dreamed. My guess is that you do not have much time, Knuckles said. It is best that you say what needs to be said. Sandra nodded. Very well. We have 9 out of the 10 plans needed to create a roboticization gun. Miles and I are on our way to get the final plan now. I have no problem with that, but I wonder what purpose it would serve to be able to roboticize your own friends. Sandra smiled and formed a small crystal in the palm of her hand. This crystal can reverse the effects of the gun and actually de-roboticize any Mobian. Knuckles' eyes narrowed. So, you want permission to create this gun and go around freeing your friends from robotics control? Not exactly. I know that would violate the rules. Besides, the crystal is unstable and tends to blow up after one use. No. I have specific targets in mind. Name these targets. Uncle Chuck and Donovan's parents. Knuckles stood up and began pacing around. I can't deny you using it on Sir Charles, he said after a while. He's not under robotics control and would have no bearing on the race, except perhaps depriving yourselves of your own inside source. However, I have very grave reservations about using it on Donovan's parents. Oh, come on! All they're doing is sitting in that one room. Robotic is using them to control Donovan and keep him neutral. Which means if you do this, you will harm Robotnik. And if I don't, the race could be upset beyond repair. Knuckles stopped in mid-stride and turned to face her. Explain your remark. We have the advantage now. Once Donovan finds an emerald, he's just going to give it to Robotnik. You said yourself that each of the 4 emeralds outside of Robotropolis has to be fought over. You do have a good point, Knuckles conceded, but I'm also thinking this through. Go do what you have to. I promise you'll have my answer by the day's end. Sounds good to me. Now, if you'll kindly put me back at Sanctuary? Of course. I'd put down the Magna. SBO says those are collected. He does not want them stolen. Darn it! Tails rushed over to her. How'd it go? He asked. He gave me his permission, she said slowly. We could go get Uncle Chuck back. All right! Tails started to fly off. Then he saw Sondra was just standing there. Something wrong? No, Sondra said, shaking her head. I was just trying to figure out the best way to get the last plan. Cool! Well, let's get going. You did bring the plans, right? Nadia has a copy of them. Thank you for your help, Thomas. I'm glad to help in whatever way I can, he said. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some sweet rosy thoughts to think of. Oh God, old people romance! Sondra and Tails nodded. She jumped into his arms and he flew off, headed for Robotropolis. Thomas watched him go as Knuckles appeared beside him. It is not good to see us not told him everything, Thomas remarked. It may turn out fine, Knuckles said. It will all depend on what decision I make. Sondra, why am I hearing you? Tails asked as he flew towards Robotropolis. You haven't done this in a while, and I missed it, Sondra said, snuggling into him. Tails smiled and held her closer. I'm glad we finally had that talk, he whispered. We got so caught up in the confusion on Sally's birthday that we almost forgot. Sondra nodded. We just had to wait like everyone else. Don't worry. I'll make sure it's worth it. Excuse me? Everyone else is waiting? Bullshit! Do not look at me with a straight face, guys, and tell me in black and white that everybody else in the village decided to all suddenly put their lives on the line. No, sorry, that ain't happening. You're still animals. They're still going to have emotions like us. And I guarantee you, there are still going to be plenty of them that are going to go, well, we might die next month. Spread your tiny wings and fly away. Alright, there are still people who are going to be like that. So don't try to tell me that everybody in that whole entire village is waiting 1 year. I don't think so. It's like trying to tell me that everybody on Voyager is waiting about 75 years before moving on with their lives. Tails started to blush, and then had to drop out of sight as he neared Robotropolis. He set Sondra on her feet and landed next to her. Nadia, he said, opening her up. Display route to the last remaining plan. Displaying now, Nadia said. Sondra, about my suggestion. Not now, Sondra said, studying the map that appeared. But Sondra, later, Nadia, okay? Fine, Nadia whispered and set herself off. What's with her? Tails asked as they headed down to the deserted streets. Don't worry about it, Sondra said. She just has to learn some patience. Back at Knothole, Sally was just finishing the tree decorations when Maurice burst into the room. "Rosie!" he called, running around. "Rosie!" "What's wrong, Maurice?" Sally asked, grabbing his arm as he passed. "It's Mortissa! The baby's coming!" "What?" Everyone stopped what they were doing and turned to look at him. "The baby's coming now!" Sally was the first to recover. "Sonic, you go with your father and try to keep your mother comfortable." "Right, Sal," Sonic said, running out with his father. "Rotor, Dulcie, round up everyone you can. This is something everyone should be a part of." "You got it, Sally," Rotor said, hurrying outside with Dulcie close behind. "Bunny, you and Antoine get some clean towels together and boil some water." "You got it, Sally girl," Bunny said, dragging a stunned Antoine out of the room. "As for me, I'm going to find Rosie," Sally said, then realized she was there by herself. She looked around for a moment, shrugged, and flew off. Pulling on her coat, she left the war room. Sondra ran around Robotropolis, carrying Tails in her arms. "You know, I like it better this way," Tails said. "Somebody's a bottom!" Sondra smiled back out, and then stopped short and let Tails go. He went headfirst into a pile of snow. "You can get there on your own now," she said, running off. Tails pulled himself out of the snow and flew after her. She wasn't going that fast, so he was able to catch up quickly. "One more stunt like that, and I might rethink giving you that present," he warned her. "I can't believe you even threatened that. Give me a break, Sondra. You know I'm only playing. Besides, we're here." Tails came to a stop, hovering in place. Sondra stopped and looked up at him. "Now that we're here, guess there's no turning back, huh?" "You mean you were considering it?" Sondra sat down on a snow-covered block of metal. "Thing is, Miles, this is going to be a great responsibility. We can't just go around de-roboticizing everyone whenever we want to. We both know that everyone will want to if this works. I'm just wondering if it'll be worth it." "You got a point," Tails said, sitting down next to her. "I mean, there's no way to keep it a secret. When they see Uncle Chuck normal, everyone will want their families back, race or no race. Well, we'll just have to do the best we can." "I know. At the least, we could have the plans ready for when the race is over." She smiled weakly and hugged Tails. "Thanks, Miles. I feel better already." "Hey, what are everybody's friends for? Now come on, let's get this over with." Sondra took Nadia from her boot and opened her up. "Nadia, social security diagram of the room." "Coming up now, Sondra," Nadia said. Sondra." "Not now, Nadia," Sondra said, studying the map that appeared. "But Sondra, I said you were going to have to wait, didn't I?" Sondra said angrily. "We'll discuss it when we get back." "Keep your voice down," Tails whispered. "In case you've forgotten, we're in Robotropolis right now." Sondra looked around suddenly. "Oops," she whispered. "Think anyone heard us?" "No one else is around," Nadia said testily. "Living, robotic, or otherwise." "She seems really intent about something," Tails said. "Maybe we should just deal with it now and get it over with." "I can't because I don't have an answer yet," Sondra said. "Besides, this isn't the time or place for it." "Easy, Sondra," Tails said. "No need to go off like that." Sondra forced herself to take a deep breath. "I'm sorry, Nadia. It's important to me too, but can we just take things one at a time?" "I'm sorry," Nadia said. "I shouldn't have pushed like that." "Here," Tails said. "Now that that's settled, let's go what we came for." "A couple of things I should mention," Nadia said. "There are some unusual security devices here, as if what's inside is even more important than what we're expecting." "An emerald, perhaps?" Tails ventured. "Unlikely. There are no energies nearby that was tested. If that was the case, Robotnik would know plans." "Now let's just take it easy then," Sondra said. "Slow and careful." Back at Knothole, Sally was running towards Maurice and Patissa's hut as fast as she could. "Hang on, Rosie!" Rosie adjusted her hands around Sally's waist. "It's lucky you caught me just before I left for Sanctuary," she said. "I had planned on spending some time with Hannes, but this is far more important." "You old people romance! You! Sally nodded, then stepped in surprise. A crowd had gathered inside the hut and was blocking the entrance. Sally and Rosie tried to get in, but no one would move out of the way. "You've got to find another way in," Rosie said. Sally picked up her nanny and flew to the roof of the hut. She landed feet first and forced her way down to the hut. As soon as they landed, Rosie rushed over to Patricia. "How are you, Patricia?" Rosie said. Patricia managed a smile. "About the same as the last time I was here," she said, then screamed as another labor pain hit her. "It's crazy out there," Sally said, looking out the window. "Well, you did say to get everyone," Rhoda explained. "As it is, Dulcie's out there still searching for Tails and Sondra." "Where could they be? I didn't even know they were leaving Knothole." "I saw them go," Lydia said, "but I have no idea where they were headed." Sally was about to ask something, but another scream from Patricia cut her off. Isabella clenched her hands over her ears and stared her eyes. "I don't like it here," she wailed. "I want to go home." Leah picked her up and tried to comfort her. That's when Rosie took charge. "All right, everyone out," she said, pushing people out the door. "The only ones who can stay are Sonic and Maurice. The rest of you, go!" Everyone looked at Rosie, shocked by her demeanor. "I need room to work," she explained. "It's going to be hard enough delivering the baby under these conditions. Sonic and Maurice are staying to help Patricia calm. Now, move!" You know, speaking of babies and maternity scenes, yeah, Trix? Trixie just realized you have admitted that whole entire Rarity giving birth scene in back in Fall of Starfleet, that was inspired by the chapter on the episode of Full Metal Alchemist where we see Alicia born. Correct? Yeah. Did this one also have some influence? I keep telling you, Trixie. If you pay attention to Fall of Starfleet and look real close, you can see influences from a lot of things. Namely, Sonic, Full Metal Alchemist, Naruto, and Kingdom Hearts. You just need to pay attention, and if anybody ever were to ask, I would gladly tell them what was probably inspired by what. Without a word, everyone but Rosie and the Hedgehogs left the hut. Rosie walked back over to Patricia and talked to her consolingly. Maurice held her hand and stroked her hair quills. Every now and again, Rosie would call on Patricia to push. She would, accompanied by a loud scream. The only difference is, they're nowhere near as fun as I make my labor scenes. Sondra and Tails stood just inside the door of the room with the final roboticization plan, dumbfounded. There was not one, but two plans in front of them. What could it mean? Sondra asked. Tails definitely must have known we were looking for these plans, Tails said. One of them must complete the gun, but I have no idea what the other one would do. Knowing Sniffly, nothing good. But how do we tell which one is which? Well, you better decide soon, Nadia said. We can't afford to be here much longer. I want something else. The tables are booby-trapped. You could take one of the plans, but not both. We'll see about that, Sondra said. Miles, go stand by that table. When I give the word, grab the plant and get out. Tails nodded, walked to the table. Anytime you're ready, he said. Sondra got her hands near the table. Grab it now! As soon as he touched the plants, the ceiling started to shake. Move it! Tails yelled, darting out the door. Sondra ran toward the door, but a piece of ceiling fell and hit her back. She screamed across to the floor. Sondra! Tails yelled. He got back into the room, scooped her up in his arms, and ran for the room. Just as he got out of the room, the rest of the ceiling caved in. Sondra and Tails both looked at the pile of rubble they had just escaped. We were lucky that time, Sondra said. Tails nodded, but at least we got the plans. And now, for a word from Legend Bringer to DM. So, Tails, Sondra, you knew about the trap. I told you this was trapped. Why didn't you roll to disable traps? Maybe Uncle Chuck could figure it out, Tails suggested. We'll probably need his help to make it anyway. Not going to be much of a surprise then, Sondra muttered. It'll be a surprise, just not to everyone at the same time. Sondra smiled. You're right. Let's get over there. She jumped from his arms and hit the ground running. Before she ran 10 feet, she screamed in pain and collapsed to the ground. Tails rushed to her side and helped her up. How bad is it? He asked worriedly. Sondra tried to stand on her own power, but it was much too much pain. Not bad, she lied. I'll just have a nasty bruise tomorrow. She waved her hands around her waist, and a thin layer of crystal surrounded it under her coat. I'll use this as a brace for now. Maybe we should head back, he said. Sondra shook her head. No way, Miles. Not after we come this far. Then I'll carry you there. Hate to break this up, Nadia said before Sondra could protest. But there's a group of SWAT bots headed this way. Tails picked Sondra up and flew out the Uncle Chuck's base. Just as they had passed out of sight, about 10 SWAT bots headed by Metal Sonic arrived. Looks like they've got the plans, the robot thought. Metal Sonic, report. Robotnik's voice sounded over the communicator. A ceiling collapsed in a storage room, Metal Sonic said. Scans show it was caused by a structural weakness. Nothing of importance was destroyed. Very well. Return to base. Metal Sonic smiled to himself. Things have gotten a lot more interesting, he thought, then ordered the SWAT bots back to their stations. Almost there, Patricia, Rory said softly. Only a couple more pushes. I am never going through this again, Patricia yelled. Here comes another one, Rosie said. Give it all you got, Patricia. Patricia took a deep breath and pushed with everything she's got. Sonic saw Rose's face brighten, then looked the girl horrified. Patricia, stop pushing! What's wrong? Maurice and Sonic asked together. The baby is coming out feet first. No! Patricia cried. I almost lost Sonic like that. Is there anything you could do? Maurice asked, his voice startled with worry. I can help with the pain, but I don't have what I need. One of you has to get Tanis here. I'll go! Sonic yelled and ran through the hut door, knocking several animals over in his way. What's going on? Sally demanded, pushing herself off the ground. Rosie came over to the door. Sally, I can't explain, but you have to keep everyone out of here. She slammed shut the door before Sally could respond. Sally stood looking at the door. Once again, another scream sounded from within. I hope everything's okay, she thought. Tails arrived at Uncle Chuck's base and banged on the hidden door. The door opened and Tails flew inside. What brings you two here? Uncle Chuck asked. Then he saw Tails was holding Sondra. What happened? Sniffly booby-trapped the room that held the last plan, Tails explained, setting Sondra down carefully in a chair and helping her get her coat off. Sondra got caught by some of it. You all right, Sondra? Just sore, Sondra said. I used my powers to make a crystal brace for my back, but I'll be all right. So, you finally got all the plans, huh? What do you plan on doing with them? Before we get to that, Tails said, there's a bit of a problem. There are 2 plans in the room. Let me see them, Uncle Chuck said. Tails and Sondra handed over the plans, and Uncle Chuck sat down at his table and looked them over. Both have a marker on page 10, he said, but the circuitry is vastly different. Do you have the other plans with you? Nadia has them in memory, Sondra said, handing her over. You sure you're okay? Tails asked. You went through you stressed. I'm okay, Sondra said, a little on edge. You don't have to baby me. Excuse me for being concerned. I'm sorry, Miles. I'm just feeling very stressed out right now, and the pain isn't helping. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Tell you what, if the pain isn't gone by morning, I'll go see Tanis, okay? Deal. And I'm gonna hold you to it. Like I would expect any less, Sondra said, kissed him on the nose. If you two are done, Uncle Chuck interrupted, I think I know which of these plans is the right one. Great! Tails and Sondra said together. They're really good, but the circuitry of this one is similar to the roboticizer itself. This other one is more like a bomb. So, if we use that one, we'd probably blow ourselves up, right? Tails asked. Right, Uncle Chuck answered. Well, now that's settled. I suppose you want to go back and finish decorating. Actually, no, Sondra said. I was hoping you could help me build one of them. What reason could you want for something like this? Oh, I'm sure she has her reasons, Tails said, smiling. Uncle Chuck raised his hands to surrender. All right, I'll go get some components from trash heaps. I don't think I'll be hurting Robotnik by picking through his trash. See if you can get enough for 2, Sondra said, visiting. 2? Uncle Chuck asked, arcing his robotic eyebrow. Just in case what I have planned doesn't work out like I had expected to. Make yourselves comfortable. This might take a while. Uncle Chuck looked through the periscope to make sure no one was there, then hurried off. Tails sat down and put Sondra on his lap. "Try and get some rest," he said, putting his arms around her. Sondra snuggled her head into his chest and closed her eyes. But she couldn't rest. Her back was hurting far more than Tails knew, as he was not going to tell him. With luck, it would be fine by morning, and no one would have to know about it. Rosie was doing her best to calm Patricia, but the pain was wearing her out. "I don't know how much longer I can take this," Patricia said, breathing heavily. Maurice squeezed her hand reassuringly, but he was too frightened to say anything. Rosie paced the hut, checking Patricia's pulse every few seconds. "Where are they?" she muttered. "They have to come soon."
"We are here,"
Tana said, appearing with Sonic in a flash of light.
"Hurry!" Morris said. "I think we're losing her."
"Patience, Maurice," Tana said, coming to stand next to him.
"Rosie and I can deal with this, but I must ask you and your son to leave."
"No way, Tanis," Maurice said. "There's no way I'm leaving her like this."
"I tried asking nicely,"
Tana said. He muttered some ancient words, and Sonic and Maurice were teleported from the hut. "Sonic?" Sally asked. "What's going on there?" "My mom's in bad shape," Sonic said. "I had to get Tanis. Rosie said something about the baby coming out feet first." Her head to her mouth. "Oh no, I'm sure everything will be okay. Meanwhile, you better take care of your father." Sonic looked at Maurice. The elder hedgehog was trembling uncontrollably. "Come on, Dad," Sonic said. "Let's run last around Knothole. He'll burn off some energy." Maurice nodded, and he and his son took off with twin sonic booms. Inside the hut, Tanis' expression had grown very grave.
"You both know the consequences if I do this," he said. "That is why I try to avoid it."
"It's the only way," Rosie said. "They'll both die if you don't." "Do what you must," Patricia said in a weak voice, "to save my baby."
"Better ease, child," Tanis said. "Sleep now and leave everything to us."
He held his hand on Patricia's shoulder and sent her to a deep sleep. "I am ready," Rosie said, standing across from Tanis. Tanis nodded and held his hands over Patricia's belly. Rosie placed her hands on his, and they both closed their eyes. Their hands began to glow as Patricia's belly. She squirmed in her sleep, but the spells held her motionless. Rosie and Tanis put all of their knowledge in a spell, knowing they only had one chance. Sondra awoke with a start as the door to the base opened. She hadn't even known she had fallen asleep. "That you, Uncle Chuck?" she asked once as she stretched her back. "It's me, Sondra," Tails said, shaking the snow off his coat. "Uncle Chuck's been back for half an hour." "What were you doing outside?" she asked, trying to stand. Tails walked over to her and set her back down. "I thought I heard something outside the door. I didn't see anything with the periscope, so I decided to take a look." "Did you see anything?" Tails shook his head. "Not a thing, but a storm starting. We should be getting back soon." "Not until this is finished," he said.
"But it is,"
Uncle Chuck said, walking towards them. In his hand he carried two robotic guns.
"I was able to find just enough parts to make them."
Sondra stood with Tails' help and met Uncle Chuck halfway. "That's great!" she exclaimed.
"Unfortunately, we have no idea if they'll work. Not that I can see any possible reason for you to be using them."
"You're right," agreed. "We don't have any reason to use a roboticization gun." He looked at Sondra and smiled. Uncle Chuck stared hard at Tails.
"What am I missing?"
he asked.
"Come on, you two. You know I hate being kept in the dark."
Sondra reached over and took one of the guns from Uncle Chuck. "Have some patience," she said, forming a crystal in her hand. "Everything will be made clear in a few minutes." Uncle Chuck looked at her, then saw the crystal. His eyes widened in sudden understanding. He stood there mute as Sondra fitted the crystal into the barrel, took aim at Uncle Chuck, and fired. A small explosion shook Robotropolis a few seconds later. Robotnik jumped out of his chair.
"Metal Sonic! Identify the location of that explosion at once!"
He boomed over his communicator.
"Location confirmed,"
Metal Sonic said after a few seconds.
"It is an isolated part of the trash area. No damage was sustained except to a garbage heap."
"Send a patrol out there anyway. I want to know what happened."
"As you wish,"
Metal Sonic said, flipping out the communicator. On the screen before him, he watched the street snake sunk off into the approaching night, and he smiled. Well as Metal Sonic can. Back at Knothole, Sonic and Maurice were completing another lap around the perimeter when the cry of a baby reached their ears. They immediately furred towards a hut.
New father coming through!
Maurice yelled, pushing animals aside to get into the hut.
New brother right behind him!
Sonic yelled, following his father's wake. Both hedgehogs stopped as they got inside the hut. Thomas was slept in a chair, obviously exhausted. Rosie was tending to him, but not much better off. You two okay? Sonic asked.
Thomas waited him a while. Look to your wife and child, he said weakly.
Maurice and Sonic rushed over to bed. Patricia's clothes were soaked with sweat. Her breathing was rapid and shallow, but she didn't seem to be in any pain.
Patricia?
Maurice asked worriedly. Patricia smiled. Maurice, meet your daughter, she said, holding up a small bundle of furry quills snugly wrapped in a warm blanket.
Everybody on 3! 1, 2, 3! Aww!
Maurice and Sonic both caught their breath. The baby was very cute, in the manner that all babies are. She had light gray fur like her father, and blonde hair quills like her mother. Her eyes were a dark cloudy blue that would soon turn a dark brown or black. She looked around with the pure innocence that could only come from a newborn child. And you guys aren't in the studio right now, so you can't see this, but Dizzy had just delivered the mail when she heard that, and now she's going off to hug Dinky as she remembers what Dinky looked like when she was born. It's very cute here, people.
A daughter?
Maurice asked, taking the child in his arms. He stared down at her, see up at him. For a moment, the four hedgehogs were bound together as one.
Have you named her?
He had whispered, not wanting to break the spell of the moment. Patricia smiled as the baby reached up and grabbed Maurice's beard. Her name is Kelly Man, she said, after our mother's. Maurice smiled, and Kelly broke into a toothless grin.
I think she approves.
Can I hold her? Sonic asked quietly. Maurice gently placed Kelly in Sonic's arms.
Hold her like this,
he said, positioning Sonic's arms. You know, this just makes me think of when my little brother was born and Mom and Dad let me have him. You know, it was kind of weird holding a little baby dragon in my forearms. But it was cute. He also squirmed and breathed a little fire at me. Sonic held her very carefully at first, as he was holding a priceless face. Vaz! Show tricks! But he was still rocking her like he had been doing it all his life. She's so perfect, he whispered, kissing her forehead. Kelly stared at Sonic, then reached up and beat his nose. Oh! Ow! Ow! Oh! That hurt! Too cute! Trixie dying! They all chuckled at that.
I'm just glad you're both okay,
Morris said, sighing. Patricia looked down for a moment.
I'm afraid not all is as it seems.
No, Thomas! We're not having any bad news right now. You can talk about it outside. Maurice and Sonic both looked down, then started slightly. What do you mean? Sonic asked.
Their lives were in great danger,
he said, lifting his gaze at him.
There was only one way to save them, and they exacted a price.
What price? Maurice asked, immediately concerned.
To save this child's life, she had to give up any chance of future children. The magic I used was very powerful. There was no other way.
Maurice sat on the bed next to Patricia and began to cry. He took her in his arms as he buried her face in his shoulder. Thank you for saving them, he said in a thick voice, as if he were about to cry himself. Perhaps we should leave them alone now, Rosie suggested, helping Thomas to his feet. They slowly made their way to the door, and were opening it when a commotion happened outside the... What's happening? Thomas asked, looking outside. Rosie looked out and caught her breath. But almighty, it can't be.
It is,
Thomas exclaimed, moving outside. What is it? Sonic demanded. What's going on?
What are you doing, sonny boy?
Uncle Chuck asked, stepping inside the hut.
Did you really think I missed this?
Everyone stared, open-mouthed as they saw him. It was definitely him, but he wasn't a robot anymore.
You look like you'd seen a ghost,
he said, smiling. Sonic was the first to find his voice. How? He asked. I can answer that, Sondra said, walking in with Tails. We found the last planet the roboticization gun, and with his help built one. All it took was the same crystal I used to free Sally, and here he is! Merry Christmas, Sonic! Uncle Chuck walked over to Sonic and took the baby in his arms.
Is this my niece?
He asked. Meet Kelly Min, Patricia said, crying again, but there were tears of joy this time. Uncle Chuck walked out, holding the baby in his arms. Sonic walked out with them. We have a lot to celebrate today, he called. Not only the birth of my sister, Kelly Min, but the return of Uncle Chuck. The crowd stood stunned for a moment, then erupted in applause. Everyone started talking at once. Sonic did his best to answer their questions. Uncle Chuck helped out at returning Kelly to her parents. Tails took advantage of the confusion to talk to Thomas. I want you to look at Sondra, he said. See her back today and is trying to act like it's not bothering her. Later that night, Sondra was laying in bed, crumbling herself. Thomas had healed her back somewhat, but she had been bored to remain in bed for the next 2 days. She reached for the spare roboticization gun she had hidden under her bed and sighed. I wish he'd let me know, she whispered.
I am here,
Knuckles whispered. Sondra jumped up and pinched out of her back. I wish he didn't do that! Sally tossed her bed and Sondra quieted down.
I have considered your request, Knuckles said heavily. As much as I don't want to, I have to agree with you. Donovan is actively searching for the final hidden emerald, and he cannot be allowed to merely give it to Robotnik. Therefore, you can free his parents, but you must promise to never let this gun be used again until after the 7 emeralds are decided.
Thank you, Sondra whispered. Thank you.
I just hope you know what you're doing, Knuckles said, and faded from sight.
Sondra smiled and turned over. She fell instantly asleep as her thoughts focused about what she was going to do tomorrow.
Released! The 3 dreaded words!
Although, does that really make sense? This has been a serialized adventure so far.
Yeah, you're right. Released! The Kraken.
Hello, beastie. I'm a druid. Your butt is mine.